Hi everyone, I hope you're all doing really well and welcome back to my podcast, Life of an Artrepreneur. This is going to be part 2, carrying on from last week, where I'm going to be answering all of your questions that you've left for me on Instagram. And to be honest, I answered quite a lot of them last week, more than I thought. And also thank you so much for your feedback on last week's episode. I feel like you really enjoyed it with Conrad asking me the questions at random, and it was just more of a chat and like a conversation, and it was nice to have someone else on the podcast rather than just me and my voice all the time. So whilst I'm still figuring out how to, get other artists on the podcast so the sound quality is good along with the visual, whilst I'm still figuring all that out, I'm going to answer the rest of the questions that you asked me. So I've literally got no notes. I've got no script like I usually do. Literally nothing. I'm just going rogue here at this point. So the first question that I'm going to go with is, how do you go about selecting the right colours to use based on your reference image? So that's quite a good question to start with, actually, in terms of drawing. So whenever I am starting or approaching a new drawing, what I'll do is always draw out the outline. Once I've got that sorted, I tend to always start with the eyes. And then once it comes to like the main body of fur, what I'll do is really zoom in on the reference photo, look at all the different colours within the fur, and literally get all your pencils. I've got this really nice pencil organiser on the side of my desk. And my advice is to get out all of the colours that you can see, even if they're like really subtle. There's always a lot of colours within fur, no matter what colour it is, whether it's brown, black, white, ginger. There's always like subtle undertones and like little hints of purples and more vibrant colours that you might not necessarily see initially. But with coloured pencils, you always want to work from light to dark. So once you've kind of picked out a range of colours and you're trying to figure out which one to start with, always start with the palest one and then gradually get darker. There's 3 colours that I absolutely love to use as a base layer. They're all luminance pencils. I feel like luminance pencils are just so much better than polychromos to use as a base colour, because they're predominantly wax based, so they're much softer and kind of creamier to work on top of. So as a base layer, they work really, really well. I use the buff titanium, the pink white and the silver grey. If you start with one of them as your first initial base layers, I think then you're onto a good start. And then you gradually just want to get a little bit darker each time. Start kind of mapping in your shadows, start building in some of those like more vibrant undertones, so layers that you add on top kind of stay vibrant with those colours shining through from underneath. And yeah, I mean, I could go on about layers and colour pencils forever, but my main advice for choosing the right colours is to start off with one of those 3 base layers and kind of figure it out from there. If you've got Procreate or Photoshop, or if you've got any image editing software or app, and usually there's an eyedropper tool, so if you like hold and click on a section of the image, it'll come up with that specific colour and make that colour a lot bigger. And then you can compare that with the colour pencils that you've got and kind of figure it out that way. Although when it comes to choosing colours, I think the main thing is practice. The more black Labradors you draw, the more white dogs you draw, the more gingery cats you draw, you just naturally sort of remember which colours to sort of go with, because you've kind of used them combinations before, you know that it works. So practice is key. Also, another thing that could help is to do little colour swatches. So if it's the first time you've ever drawn a black Labrador, I don't know why I keep using a black Labrador as an example, but if you were drawing a black Labrador for the first ever time, you had no idea where to start with the silver grey luminance pencil. That's where you should start. But then after that, you want to pick out like your warmer greys, your colder greys, blues, purples, browns, and do little swatches on a scrap piece of paper, kind of layer colours together, see how it works, and then use that on your drawing. But I think overall, as long as you're building all your colours up gradually, if you do end up going in with a slightly off colour, it's really not the end of the world, because the beauty of layering is that you can just kind of cover it after a few more layers. And the more colours you layer up, the more it kind of naturally develops into the same colour as the reference photo, if that makes sense. That was such a long answer. I didn't mean to ramble on that much. But yeah, hopefully that's given you some tips. Also, I actually did a really good video on my Patreon where I literally went through every single colour, like in general, that I would use for different fur types and different fur colours. So I'll remember to link that in the video description below, because that'll really help with choosing colours. I've got one about all the different fur colours and which pencil colours to include in each one. and I've got one on base layers and how to choose initial colours. So I'll link both of them videos in the video description below. So yeah, that's question number 1 done, and we're probably about half an hour gone already. Let's see what else we've got. This is a good one. What has been the hardest part of being a full-time artist and why, and how did you solve it? So I think the hardest thing is to constantly be disciplined every single day, because when you work for yourself as a full-time artist, no one's telling you what to do. You're in full control of everything. You're the one that has to get all the work done. And you can't rely on being motivated to draw or to do admin stuff or to do loads of updates on your website or spend all afternoon packaging. Like, you've just got to get on with it, and you just have to be super self-disciplined. I think with work, I am quite disciplined anyway. I've always sort of had that, but some days it is really hard, and I think it gets very overwhelming. I think being self-employed, you think you're going to have all this spare time and you can do whatever you want, but in a way it's the complete opposite. It's good in the sense that I can rearrange different work bits, but the amount that you work is a lot. So if you're like someone who works full-time 9 to 5 or whatever, and you want to become a full-time artist, be prepared for that huge kind of commitment and discipline that you're going to need. However, it's literally amazing because I literally get to do what I love doing every single day, and as long as you stay consistent with it and stay disciplined, you're only going to grow, and with that comes more opportunities, and your work and the opportunities and all the avenues you can go down with your business just completely expands. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if I answered your question, but yeah, the hardest part is to stay disciplined. And how did I solve it is just to stay really, really organised. I've got a daily planner here, which I organise like literally day by day, week by week, month by month. And I fill it out for the week on a Sunday night, so it's ready for Monday morning and for the week ahead. I add to it, I change things to it all the time. But as long as I've got that structure, I think it really helps in staying on top of things and trying to be as organised and disciplined as possible. So the next question... I feel like I've answered quite a lot of these now. We'll go with this one. What is your favourite ever commission that you've drawn? That is a very good question and a difficult one to answer. I would say a pet portrait of Bella. However, I've not drawn like an up-to-date photo of her for years. We've got one downstairs, but it's from when she was a puppy. It was on brown paper. It's just really, really old, so I know that I could do a far better job now. So as much as I'd like to say Bella, my own dog, I'm going to select a few other ones. So I actually read this question last week, and I actually selected some images already just in case Conrad asked me it last week, but he didn't actually ask me that question. So I'd say the past few years I've done some really, really large scale commissions of golden retrievers, and I feel like golden retrievers as a breed are just so happy and they're just so lovely to draw. So if you're watching on YouTube, then I'm obviously going to show you which ones I'm on about, but if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, I'll try and describe it. So this one is a puppy golden retriever, and it's got a little orange bone in its mouth, and it's sort of lying on the floor, so it's got its paws in it. It was a really nice angle, and it was quite a big one, so I felt like I got so much detail in that. This cat commission is another one of my favourites. Again, I just really love the position of it. It's lying on its back, paws in the air. It just looks so chilled. I actually prefer drawing cats more than dogs, which surprises a lot of people because I draw so many dogs. But I just love drawing cats. I think maybe because I draw so many dogs, and when I draw a cat, it's a nice change. I just feel like cats are so like pretty, and you can get so much detail on the fur. Although I am very much a dog person, don't get me wrong. My favourite dog breed to draw is actually spaniels. I love drawing brown spaniels. This is one that I selected from this year, actually, earlier this year. I just love drawing spaniels. They're so cute. I feel like because the ears are quite complex and they've got loads of intertwining, like overlapping tufts, it is quite a challenge to draw. So once you've drawn it, you can kind of look back and think like, wow, I've actually achieved all of that detail. But the main one that I wanted to show you that I've selected was one that I did last year for Christmas. And it's completely different to anything that I've ever drawn before. So if you like fine art, you've probably seen the painting The Last Supper, which is basically of like Jesus with his disciples on like a really long table, and it's like a big painting. So the client wanted me to draw her friend's 12 dogs. I think she'd rescued around 12 over the years that were ex-police dogs, and kind of arrange them on the same sort of layout as that particular painting, the Last Supper, and have like one particular one in the middle. And in the painting on the table, they've got loads of like glasses of wine and like food. So I tried to, keep the same theme but make it more dog themed. So I'd replace it with like bowls of water, like steaks, bones, like that kind of vibe. I still need to post this on Instagram. I can't believe I've not shared it yet, but I've taken pictures of it at various stages. I'll show you the whole thing first on YouTube. The reflection isn't great, you can't see properly, but yeah, there was 12 dogs in total, mainly German Shepherds and Vizslas, and a few Labradors. Oh, there was also a little goldfish as well that I included. So yeah, it was very different for me because it's still realistic, but it's quite cute. They've all got like the paws on the table, and it was just a good opportunity to be a bit more creative in terms of a commission. Unless the client has like a clear vision on what they want and we can come up with a composition, I don't really take on loads of like weird commissions these days. I think I mentioned in the previous podcast how a lot of my first commissions were, very, like I'd draw them with clothes on. They were kind of gimmicky. Whereas now I'm a bit more selective with the commissions that I actually take on. But yeah, this is definitely one that I really enjoyed drawing at the time. And I definitely need to share that on socials. I can't believe I've not done yet. But yeah, there's an exclusive for you. So the next question is, how quick and easy is it for you to sketch and draw? So I think sketching and being very, very loose and like learning to draw that way in terms of shading and shapes and just practicing with your pencils with just normal like graphite is a good place to start before you go in with coloured pencils. I think coloured pencils and realism takes a lot of practice and a lot of refining and a lot of detail. So unless you're confident in like sketching and just drawing initially, then I guess coloured pencils would be quite difficult. However, it sounds like the question's sort of asking about initial outlines as well. Again, I will leave a link to a video I've got all about initial outlines and how I draw them in the video description below. But I think because coloured pencils take so long, they're such a slow medium, any method that you can do that'll speed up the process in any way is always a good thing to do. So I use graphite transfer paper to transfer my initial outlines onto my paper, just because it's the quickest method that I've found. It gives me accurate proportions every single time, and I've tried so many different methods over the years, but that's definitely the one that's just the quickest, the easiest, and the most accurate. One thing with the graphite transfer paper, it's not the same as carbon paper. Carbon paper has like almost like a waxy film over the top. So when you use carbon paper to transfer lines to the paper underneath, you can't erase it. Those lines won't budge. Whereas when you use wax-free graphite paper, those lines just easily remove. You can erase them, you can make them fainter. And obviously you don't want a really thick outline underneath your coloured pencil drawing. You want those initial outlines to be as faint as you can. In terms of just drawing in general though, I think, it's always a good thing to keep the skill of drawing from life. This month I'm actually doing a tutorial, or like an introduction video really, into drawing from life on my Patreon. And to be honest, it's been quite a while since I've drawn from life as well. It's definitely a skill that requires practice for you to stay quite good at it. Otherwise you can kind of lose your touch. So I'll see how mine turns out. But yeah, drawing in general is just such a good skill to have. You need to learn to draw before you can paint. Drawing from life helps you see things in a different way. Sketching can help you loosen up a little bit. And drawing with graphite can help you learn about shading, layers and pressures before you learn all about coloured pencils. So yeah, I've actually forgotten what the question was. I've just gone off on a tangent again there. How quick and easy is it for you to sketch and draw? So I feel like I've answered that question there. So the next question is, have you ever had a commission that the customer refused to pay for, as they said they were not happy with it after you sent them a photo of the drawing, but they kept the photo and maybe used that instead? If so, how did you deal with that? And with that said, do you watermark your photos? So I think it's always a really good idea to watermark your photos, especially if you've just finished a commission and you've taken pictures of it and you're sending it to the client. I'll always add a watermark, quite subtle, over the top, because not that they would do, but you just never know. They might use that image and print it out, frame it, and then you're just left with the drawing. But I feel like it's very, very, very unlikely to happen for a client who comes to you because they've seen your like skilled coloured pencil work or whatever. They've put down a deposit. You've had that whole communication the whole time in terms of discussing reference photos, the composition, everything like that. The likelihood is they'll have appreciated the time and the effort and the skill that's gone into that artwork, and obviously they'd prefer to have the artwork than just a printed out picture of it. But it is always a risk. So when you do take pictures of your commissions to send to clients, I just put a bit of a watermark over the top so they can't do that. Fortunately, I've never had that happen to me, but I can imagine how sometimes it might happen. The start of that question was, have you ever had a commission that the customer refused to pay for as they said they were not happy with it after you sent them a photo? Again, no, I haven't. I tend to sometimes send the client progress pictures so they kind of know where I'm up to. And if like the colouring's slightly off, or if the eyes need to be a bit brighter or slightly more green, then, you know, I'm open to hearing what the client's got to say, because at the end of the day, they know the pet the best. So I'm only going off the pictures that they've sent me. But I feel like, you know, you talk about all that before you actually start your commission anyway. So it just reduces the risk of anything like that going wrong. But yeah, there has been times where I've completely finished the drawing, sent it over, they are happy with it, but they just want things tweaking, which I think is absolutely perfectly fair enough, because they're paying a lot of money for a really memorable, important portrait that they're going to keep and, you know, showcase in the house or whatever. So you want it to be perfect for them. So the last question is that I'm going to finish on is, what is your favourite platform and why? I feel like it's pretty obvious. I absolutely love my Patreon. Patreon and YouTube, but I feel like Patreon is just so much more, that you really get to know everyone on Patreon, and I'm so grateful that I've managed to build like a whole community of like-minded artists on there. We talk all the time. We've got our own private Facebook group where everyone can share their works in progress, get to know each other, ask people questions. I find the teaching side of being an artist so rewarding, and really helping people one-on-one sort of turn their like drawing hobby into an art business is really rewarding. And I wish I'd have known about Patreon. I didn't even know if Patreon existed when I first started drawing pet portraits like 6-7 years ago, maybe even longer than that now. Surely it did, I'm not sure, but I just wish that I'd known about something like that and had a community that I could have joined where I could have learned from other people and just have had a bit more guidance, because it's a lot trying to navigate different parts of your business when you're trying to set everything up, and you're learning about so many different things at once, like marketing and packaging and the best way to do things, filming, all your studio equipment, editing, all the different platforms that you've got to be on and be constantly active on, social media. Like there's so many things to figure out when you're just starting out. So yeah, I kind of wish I had that guidance when I was just starting out, or even partway through, because it just helps to accelerate your growth and your knowledge on things, I feel like. But yeah, Patreon is definitely the most rewarding platform for me, and I absolutely love teaching everyone on Patreon every month. And we're actually working on an A3 lion cub this month, where I'm talking about how I'm looking up there because it's stuck on the wall up there. I would show you, but it's all sellotaped on. I don't want to rip it off. But I'm really enjoying this one so far. I've done like half of the background, so I've tried to demonstrate how to create an out of focus, like blurry effect with coloured pencils and pan pastels. And then we've made a start on the actual lion cub. I'm about halfway through it, I'd say. We've done the eyes, the ears, the top half of the face, and the fur looks super detailed. We've got loads of colour in there. So yeah, it's quite a good tutorial this month. But yeah, I'm going to leave that there, I think, in terms of the questions. I might do another one of these in the next couple of months, like another Q&A video, because I've actually enjoyed it, and I feel like I'm actually answering the questions that I get asked quite a lot of the time. So hopefully this podcast episode will be a good go-to for everyone who's got sort of the general questions. But yeah, I'm going to leave it there. So thank you so much for watching this episode of Life of an Artrepreneur. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you've been watching on YouTube, then please remember to give it a like and subscribe to my channel to see more art-related content and future episodes. And if you've been listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, then I'd love it if you could leave a review or a comment on the episode. So yeah, hope you all have a lovely rest of your week, and I'll be back next week, hopefully with an artist guest if I can figure out how to do it technology-wise, which I'm not holding my breath for, but we shall see. But yeah, thanks for watching and have a good rest of your day.